Hello there, Dr. Byrne here. And you know how you can tell it's Dr. Byrne? Because I am wearing my doctorate hat. Yeah, this is the hat they gave me when I went to graduation. Actually, it was just a couple months ago. Um, I've been a professional student for quite a while, 13 years actually. Um, but anyway, when you become a doctor, you take your the hat and you move it to the other side of your head. So this is so that people know that you're a doctor and not some kind of imposter. Uh, anyway, I was just inspired to put my hat on um, because 3 videos in a row for me sitting in the same spot just want to spice it up a bit. Anyway, also it's they don't encourage you to throw your hat up into the air when you graduate, so I'll do that here in the safety of my own home. Yay! Okay. I mentioned in my previous video that I was trying hard to eliminate ums from my speaking on the videos. Of course, I realized that my ums have been replaced by ahs. So I don't know if that's much of an improvement, but now I'm conscious of the ahs, so I will work on that. I think I did have less eye expanding though in the previous video. Okay, so this video is on No Country for Old Men. So the last film in our American Classics series. I do have that book, which of course has an image from the film on the cover. So you would know then that the book was this edition was put out after the film, take advantage of the film and so on. Yeah, it says right on it, Academy Award for Best Picture. That actually does sell a lot of books. That, and it used to be, you had Oprah's stamp of approval on it. That would sell it, make it sell some books. So, in terms of for creative writers, um, the retirement of Oprah has been a bad thing in terms of the way she promoted literary writers, well, writers. Um, so, God bless you, Oprah. Um, I mentioned in the previous video, or maybe the one before it, I mentioned the word auteur, Auteur, the French term for author or for the creative force in a film, typically the writer director. Um, and that's true, very true of the Coen brothers in terms of their style, in terms of their themes. Um, you usually know it's a Coen brothers movie, and they are often acclaimed as auteurs, as artistic directors, as opposed to just directors who are trying to make a buck. Nothing wrong with that, of course, and the Coen brothers have certainly made their share of bucks in their various films. And No Country for Old Men is yeah, it is well, one of their best films. I'll have to say I still prefer The Big Lebowski. That for me is the ultimate in Coen Brothers movies. Actually, I went to see Fargo. I think that was my first Coen Brothers movie. I didn't like it much. I thought the violence was gratuitous, and I then and now I didn't really appreciate really bloody violence being used humorously. I know Quentin Tarantino is a master at that. Um, I don't care for it, but I do realize he is a master. And the Coen brothers similarly um, tend to look farcically at violence. Um, and so if you look at the body of work by the Coen brothers, there's the ones that are really violent, and then there's the ones that aren't. And typically, the ones that aren't are the ones that I prefer. Uh, but that said, I do think No Country for Old Men, violent as it is, and it certainly is, uh, and it's a faithful adaptation. But it also there is humor in the film, and the humor is what the Coen brothers bring to the story. Um, it but the violence is not treated as a joke in No Country for Old Men. It's really messy and ugly, um, and so I approve of it. If you don't enjoy it, it's okay for you to watch it. In my mind, I will say that Javier Bardem, I think maybe he goes over the line a little bit. I'm thinking of the opening scene with him when he manages to strangle the deputy, and his eyes pop out, kind of like the way mine do in these movies. And he looks like this maniacal, crazy serial killer monster, which I think is not in his character. It's certainly not in his character in the book, and yeah, I'll revise what I said about in No Country for Old Men, the violence and the humor being separated, because I think that crazy haircut, uh, iconic haircut that Javier Bardem has in the film that is not in the book, it's meant to look silly, but it's also meant to contrast with sort of with a vicious killer. So, but I think, Bardem got an Academy Award for the film. He certainly deserved it. I think later on, he doesn't have the crazy, eye popping and maniacal serial killer monster look. He's kind of monotone in his voice and quiet, and not very dramatic in his actions. Even when he's raising the cattle prod killer thing. He's very that's part of why he gets away with it, because he doesn't startle people. He keeps them calm, so that he can kill them better, like someone in a slaughterhouse would kill an animal. Um, so yeah, so the violence, there is maybe a little humor in the violence with Bardem's performance. It is a little, he goes a little bit over the top, I think, which maybe he was directed to do so um, by the Coen brothers and their directors. Uh, um, there's that again. Uh, the one thing about the violence, though, there is plenty of violence in the book. Uh, Cormac McCarthy, there's certain scenes where he describes in some detail blood, brains splattered on walls, and what have you. Needless to say, the experience of that violence is a lot different in a book than it is in a film. At least for me, uh, for me, reading about it, the violence is an intellectual, activity. I think about it, I imagine it. With a film, the violence, again, for me, I feel it. I feel it physically. I feel it in a very visceral way, and that's true of No Country for Old Men as well. Um, so again, just to make that point, the violence in a book is different than the violence in a film. So in the film, when you're adapting that literary violence, what have you, you have to take that into consideration, and it does sort of change the quality of the story and the acting and everything once you depict that violence on screen, and I should say adding to it sound effects and things, all that make it uh, a virtual experience and a visceral experience. So, but I wanted to go back, well, in part to again the idea of humor in violence is that there's plenty of violence in Cormac McCarthy's book. There isn't a lot of humor, and that's part of his tone, part of his voice, and maybe you can't do it on the film, but you can do it in a book in terms of McCarthy writes sort of like a biblical prophet. His characters are immersed in sort of this biblical language, and that's bringing humor into that violates it. So that's why McCarthy doesn't do that in his books. So, but again, when you bring it to the screen and then you insert the humor, the Coen Brothers brand of humor, it does violate the voice And the voice is, what brings you into the story when you're reading it. So again, the problem of voice, but also in this case the problem of violence. The After I read No Country for Old Men, which I think I read on a plane trip or something, I read it all in one sitting. So that in itself was an interesting experience, an immersive experience, and I was trepidatious about the violence in the book. But as I said, my experience of it is more of an intellectual and less of a visceral experience when I'm reading it. After I went, I was in a bookstore and I thought, well, I saw Cormac McCarthy's book, The Road, and so I thought I'll try that one. I heard that one was really violent too, and there was a film version with Viggo Mortensen. I have not had the courage to view it. Um, I understand part of it involves a spoiler alert, people eating a baby. So that's not really what I want to see. And again, maybe I can read the book, maybe I can experience that on an intellectual level, but I can't really deal with it in a film. Um, though I have been thinking lately about, in terms of developing a syllabus for the fall, in terms of scary movies, violent movies, and what have you. And I'm wondering if sort of the critical experience of viewing a film, basically seeing how the film is put together formally, and the writing, all the pieces together, whether I can focus on that in a scary or violent film and not necessarily feel it as viscerally, as physically as I would when I'm watching violent films, but not being critical. So I think I shall stop there. Oh, 12 minutes, yes. So I shall stop. Tomorrow, the next day, I'll be doing one more of these on A Scanner Darkly. So, but now I have to go and upload my film essay on A Scanner Darkly and set up all the other assignments. Oh, and by the way, I will be today and tomorrow grading your film treatment papers. I had a busy weekend, wasn't able to get to it. I will get to it in the next couple of days, and I will contact you all individually with your grade and with comments. What I've glanced at so far looks really interesting and promising. I am looking forward to reading them. I just haven't had the time. So I will see you online this week.